Damn, those alien bastards are gonna pay for shooting up my ride.
This is it, everyone, the last part of our 3-part look at the game's lobotomy software made for the SEGA Saturn. And this one is a doozy. So let's start off by talking a bit about what happened to lobotomy software after the release of Duke Nukem 3D. The story goes that after releasing Duke, the company was acquired by Crave Entertainment and started working on a Caesar's Palace gambling game for the Nintendo 64. After about a year of development time, the game was aborted, and eventually the studio would be closed. I couldn't find too much information about why that was, unless of course they just lost funding. Interestingly enough though, concept art actually exists, and I know that plans were being made for Power Slave 2, but since the studio was shut down, the game was, well, never made. And it's a really sad end for such a promising developer. They didn't go out with a whimper though, they went out with a bang. Duke Nukem 3D may have been delayed time and time again until it was finally released in the later portion of 1997, but it was certainly worth the wait. Okay, well, to be fair, it was certainly worth the wait for those with the right equipment, but we'll touch base on that in a bit. First off, you all know Duke Nukem 3D by now. It took the first-person shooter tropes and had a blast with them. The PC version was exceedingly popular, both because of its depiction of pixelated boobs and its non-stop action and great one-liners. Who could ever forget the first time they heard, "Damn, I'm looking good," or "Shake it, baby"? Classic stuff. The audio-visual presentation for the Saturn version is top-notch, like you'd expect from lobotomy software. The frame rate remains constant throughout, the dynamic lighting system is back and looks better than ever, although it's not all roses, as obviously the game does run a little bit slower than the PC original, even if it is to keep a constant frame rate. These great graphics do come at a price. Many of the levels have been shortened, cut, or altered. Many of the secret areas have been completely removed. Levels have been simplified in terms of architectural design and much more. Slave Driver, the engine that ran Power Slave, Quake, and Duke Nukem 3D on the Saturn, just wasn't as powerful as the build engine which ran the original PC version of Duke Nukem. It's the main reason why these cuts had to be made. As such, most of the awesome animated sequences have been completely removed, including earthquakes, the rocket doesn't explode in the launch facility, and much, much more. All that said, this is still the nicest looking home console version of Duke Nukem 3D. Yes, elements were cut, but you're given a constant frame rate and unbelievable, at least for their time, graphics. The audio is a mixed bag. While the sound effects and music sound great, there isn't too much here. Duke's lines have been severely cut compared to the PC original, and there are maybe half the musical tracks. What's here sounds great, it's just there's not that much. In terms of gameplay, Duke wasn't anything overly original. It used the classic formula of locating a stage's exit, finding keycards, weapon upgrades, and secondary power-ups along the way. These power-ups include things like a jetpack, scuba gear, and much more. The control scheme from Power Slave and Quake returns here, which works perfectly well. Sure, it does take a little bit of getting used to, but for the most part, you're all set within a couple of minutes. The one huge complaint I have with the controls is that the keyboard and mouse for the Netlink adapter, which I'll get on in just a sec, isn't supported. And that makes no sense considering that this game is actually Netlink compatible. Yeah, that's right, ladies and gentlemen. You can actually play this bad boy online to this very day. Thanks to the peer-to-peer connection, so long as you have a landline, you will always be able to play this game with friends. While there's no offline multiplayer in sight, having online multiplayer in 1997 was just incredible. I've actually done videos in the past highlighting on how to get online, as well as showing an actual gameplay session. You can either play through the entire game with a friend cooperatively, or you can take part in Duke Match, which is basically two-player deathmatch that uses the in-game stages as the maps. That's not all though. Lobotomy Software went the distance with this game and even included a reworked version of the Death Tank minigame from Power Slave called Death Tank Zwei, or however it's pronounced. The game works much like the first version, where you aim an arrow at your enemy tanks and try and blow them up. If you're the last tank standing, you win the largest amount of points, which can then be spent on purchasing secondary weapons like rockets and other powerful items. When you couple this minigame with the online multiplayer of the core game, this is one Saturn game that can really stay in your Saturn for years to come, because that's exactly what's happened to many people out there. Ultimately, Duke Nukem 3D on the Saturn is one of the most sought after games on the system. It isn't a perfect port, but it was doing things that no one thought possible in 1997, and especially on Sega's ill-fated Saturn system. The fact you can still play this online today through a peer-to-peer connection means it'll enjoy many more years of time in the spotlight. If you're a Saturn fan, this one's pretty much a no-brainer. It's a real shame Lobotomy Software didn't survive into the following generation, as it would have been really amazing to see what these guys could have done on the Sega Dreamcast.